Graduation day, top of his class, Ivy League degree, family in the seats, an offer letter from one of the most recognizable names in finance. From the outside, it looks like the story is already won. But getting in is only level 1. What comes after, the climb from analyst to managing director, is a completely different game. One that stops rewarding what got him here almost immediately. He thought the hard part was getting the job. He was wrong, because level 1 is not about proving how much you know. It's about being precise, reliable, fast, and calm when the request is ridiculous. And that is where the real climb begins. Level 1, analyst. He starts at roughly $150,000 to $250,000 a year, wearing Ralph Lauren and Omega and driving a Mercedes C-Class, polished, ambitious, and just expensive enough to feel like he has arrived. The first thing that hits him is not the complexity. It's the hours. Junior analysts in investment banking regularly work somewhere between 70 and 100 hours a week during active deal periods. Not as an exception, as a baseline. That is the job. And the work itself, at least at first, is not the strategic thinking he pictured in his head. It is pitch books, slide formatting, model updates, tiny mistakes that suddenly become huge problems. The lesson comes fast. Being smart is not enough. Being useful is what matters. At 1:40 in the morning, when a senior banker wants the waterfall chart moved 2 centimeters left, he does it. No pushback, no complaint. Just done. Nobody cares how impressive your degree was. They care whether you can do it cleanly, quickly, and without drama. Because level 1 is not about proving how much you know. It's about being reliable. Here, he is rewarded for being dependable. That is the real test. In school, he was rewarded for standing out. Here, he is rewarded for not breaking. And that is why so many people struggle at this level. They expected prestige to feel like reward. Instead, it feels like pressure, with a fancier label. Level 2, associate. He's closer to $250,000 to $400,000 a year, and the look sharpens into Xenia, a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, and a Mercedes E-Class. Still corporate, but now with real confidence behind it. By the time he reaches associate, the work has changed shape. He is no longer only executing. He is coordinating, reviewing analysts' models instead of just building them, joining client calls instead of prepping others for them, starting to see how deals move not just through numbers but through people. Who needs reassurance? Who needs urgency? Who needs to hear the same point 3 different ways before they believe it? The pay is better. The title sounds better. And occasionally, he is the one sitting across from the client instead of the one building the slides the night before. But now, there is a new pressure. Technical skill got him promoted once. It will not automatically get him promoted again. There is a moment that captures this stage well. Midway through a live deal, he finds a discrepancy in the model, a number that would have embarrassed everyone if it had made it into the client presentation. He fixes it quietly before anyone else catches it, before it reaches the senior banker. The MD hears about it later and gives a quick nod. Not a speech, just a nod. That is how trust gets built here. Not by being loud, by being correct when it matters. He is no longer just surviving the system. He's becoming someone the system relies on. And that changes the game. Level 3, Vice President. $400,000 to $700,000 a year range, upgraded into Ralph Lauren Purple Label, a Rolex Submariner, and a Mercedes S-Class. The kind of look that says he is no longer trying to fit in, he already does. VP is where a lot of people discover something uncomfortable about themselves. The question is no longer whether he can do the work. It is whether he can make other people do the work well, keep clients confident, and hold things together when everything starts coming apart. Those are different skills, different instincts, and not everyone who excelled earlier naturally has them yet. He is now in the middle of everything. Directors and MDs above him with high expectations and little patience. analysts and associates below him making mistakes he has to catch before they travel upward. Clients alongside him expecting everything to look under control even when it is not. Then comes the political layer nobody mentioned during recruiting. A colleague presents work and leaves his name out. A client has stronger chemistry with another MD, and he has to manage that without making it obvious he is managing it. Being analytically right is no longer enough. He has to be diplomatically effective too. The nice apartment, the business class travel, the better restaurants, those things show up here. But so does the cost. The job is no longer something he does. It is something he inhabits. One bad quarter, one mishandled relationship, one public judgment error. The downside gets real fast. He is no longer performing for a grade. He is performing for revenue. That is a different kind of accountability entirely. Level 4, Director. Now at $600,000 to $1 million a year in Brunello Cucinelli, a Rolex day date, and a Porsche Cayenne, quieter, richer, and clearly on a different level. Director is where the job stops being mostly about execution and starts becoming about ownership. He is no longer just helping carry a deal forward. He is expected to help create the deal in the first place. That changes everything. Now the work is less visible, but more consequential. He is not always the one pulling the all-nighters on the deck. He is the one making sure the opportunity exists, the client stays engaged, and the team stays pointed in the right direction. He is responsible for momentum, and momentum is very different from effort. A good director knows when to push, when to pause, and when to let a conversation breathe. He is judged less by how hard he works and more by whether the pipeline exists, whether relationships are warm, and whether the firm sees enough value in him to keep feeding him responsibility. This is also where the job becomes more personal, not because he is closer to the bottom, because now the firm is partly evaluating whether he can create value without being told exactly where to put his hands. That is a different kind of test. Level 5, Executive Director. At Executive Director, he's likely making $700,000 to $1.2 million a year, showing up in Loro Piana, Vacheron Constantin overseas, and a Mercedes Maybach with a chauffeur. This is where the lifestyle starts to feel institutional. Executive Director is where access starts turning into real power. Not the cartoon version, the real kind. The kind where people return your calls quickly. The kind where clients start treating your opinion as a filter, not just an update. The kind where your calendar fills with conversations that matter before the day has even really started. At this level, he is no longer just a participant in the business. He is one of the people shaping which opportunities get attention. That sounds glamorous from the outside, and sometimes it is. Better hotels, better dinners, better travel, conversations with people who control meaningful capital. Rooms that used to feel out of reach now feel normal, but the cost rises too. Now he has to be commercially sharp and politically aware all the time. A bad call can damage trust, freeze a relationship, or change how people think about him for years. And unlike the earlier levels, the wins are more ambiguous. At analyst, you finish a deck. At associate, you help close a deal. At VP, you keep things from breaking. At director and ED, the results are slower and fuzzier, and they depend heavily on how other people feel about working with you. That is a hard environment for someone who likes clear feedback, because the feedback is no longer immediate. It is social. It is reputational. It is cumulative. This is where a lot of people realize they are not simply climbing a ladder. They are building a personal market for themselves inside the firm. That market can grow, or it can dry up. Level 6, Senior Leadership. At Senior Leadership, he's in the $1 million to $2 million plus a year range, wearing Keaton Bespoke, an Audemars Piguet, and riding in a Bentley Continental GT with a chauffeur. Full ultra wealth, but still controlled, close to the top. But the top is not peace. The top is exposure. His compensation at this level is in a different category from the number on his first analyst offer letter. The office is better. The watch is different. The conversations he is in would have felt surreal to the version of him sitting at graduation. But something else has quietly become true. Every market movement lands differently when you are this close to the decisions. Every missed deal is more expensive. Every key relationship he has built is also a relationship that could walk. The downside is higher now, and the fall from here is longer. His calendar does not belong to him in any meaningful sense. It belongs to clients, deals, and internal demands. He starts to notice the people around him differently. A colleague who is brilliant, respected, and earning a number that would have shocked him at 22, but who carries a quiet exhaustion that no vacation fixes. And then the uncomfortable question shows up. Did he build a career, or did he build a cage? Both things can be true at once. That is the hard part. Level 7, Managing Director. And then he gets there. Managing Director. Bespoke Brioni, Patek Philippe, and a Rolls-Royce Phantom with a chauffeur making $1.5 million to $5 million at the top of the corporate world. The title that felt almost abstract when he was a first-year analyst staring at the org chart. The level where the name on his business card carries institutional weight that took over a decade to build. Where he commands real client trust, shapes deal teams, and represents the bank in conversations most people in finance never enter. In many concrete ways, this is a victory. But emotionally, it is more complicated than that. Because the person who reaches MD is not the same person who walked into the analyst program with a new laptop and enormous expectations. The differences are not just title, compensation, and reputation. It is how he reads a room, how he understands what people are really saying when they are saying something else, how he knows which risks are real and which are theater. He now understands how institutions actually make decisions, not the official version in the slide deck, but the real one. He understands capital allocation, client psychology, and how political the word meritocracy really is inside a large organization. That understanding is worth more than any single year's compensation. It cannot be Googled. It cannot be learned in a classroom. It took the full decade. And now, sitting late at his desk with the city lights outside the glass, a notebook open beside him, a document on the laptop he has opened and closed for 3 weeks, he starts thinking about something that would have sounded crazy to the version of him at graduation. Leaving, at the highest level. Not because he failed, because he finally understands the game well enough to imagine building one of his own. A few meetings, a rough business plan, a first conversation with someone who thinks he might actually do it. His own company. That is the next move. Here is the real lesson in all of this. The ladder is not the prize. It is the test. Every level gives you something you wanted when you were lower down. Money, status, access, security, proof. But it also asks for something back. More time, more energy, more identity. And if you're not paying attention, you can spend 10 years climbing something just because you were good at climbing it. That is why the smartest people in these systems eventually ask a dangerous question. What am I actually building? Because at some point, the title stops feeling like freedom. The money stops feeling like enough. And the life that once looked like the destination starts to feel like a machine you have learned how to operate, but not necessarily how to own. And that is exactly where he is now. After everything, the analyst years, the politics, the pressure, the wins, the sacrifices, he starts thinking about walking away, a fresh start with his own company. That is the next move. But here is the question that hangs over all of it. Will he actually make it outside the system he spent his whole adult life mastering? And maybe the bigger question is this. If you have spent years climbing a ladder that works, but does not fully fit the life you want, do you keep climbing it? Or do you build your own? That is where this story is going next.